This video is all about creating and using color schemes. You can create as many color schemes as you'd like and configure them with a myriad of colors. And then you can specify where to make these color schemes available for adding color to various elements like text, borders, or backgrounds in various contexts like design templates or simply directly while editing a page. So let's jump right in. We'll first create a new color scheme and then add some colors. We could create a new color palette under Design and Layout, Color Palettes. Here we can see an overview of the existing color palettes. I could just hit Create up here at the top, and then I'd start with brand new colors in an empty color palette. I might also choose to make a copy of an existing color scheme, so I have some colors to start with, which I'll do now. So if I choose System and then hit Copy, I get a new palette called Copy of System. I can then select this scheme and choose Edit, or simply double-click, and then I come into the new color scheme. What we can see here are a bunch of colors and a bunch of empty cells. To add a new color, I need to double-click on an empty slot, or just hit the Add button here at the bottom. When I do this, I get an interface up here where I could choose a color with a color picker, where I could visually select a hue and saturation in the main window as well as luminosity by using the slider. I could also define a specific color using the RGB or hex color models if I needed to match a color that I have defined elsewhere with one of these systems. In addition, note here too that you could type in an existing HTML color name like black, white, orange, or some of the funky ones out there like plum or peach puff. No, we didn't invent those names. They're so-called web-safe colors defined to service the limited color displays of some computer screens. Web-safe colors have become less of a factor as computer screens now typically have more robust color support. The HTML name is distinct from Tangora's display name where you decide yourself what a given color should be called. To add a color then, I just need to hit OK in the interface and we'll see that it appears in our palette. So that was how you create color palettes and add colors. A word on color selection. It's good to note here that colors, like so many factors in a web page, are going to display differently depending on your visitor's particular setup. So whether you choose web-safe colors or otherwise, you're going to have to think about that. So you're best not to get too attached to a particular shade of peach. On the topic of color, I'd also like to point out that color selection is actually a quite important factor regarding the accessibility of your site. If you have a colorblind or otherwise visually impaired user, you'll want to avoid conveying important meaning through color use. And you'll also want to avoid low contrast color schemes. But now let's take a look at saving your palette as well as editing and deleting your colors. I'll then also show you a cool alternative way to choose colors by lifting them from images in your solution. I could save the whole color scheme here at the bottom by clicking Save. The OK button also saves, but then it would send me back to the overview of my color schemes. To edit a color, I have to select the color and then hit Edit, or simply by double-clicking on an existing color swatch. To reorder, I just need to drag and drop a color to that slot where I'd like it to appear. I need to position it right over the slot and wait for the other swatches to reposition themselves, and then release. Try it a couple of times and you'll get the hang of it. To delete, I could just select a swatch and hit Remove. And note here too that I could remove all of my colors if I wanted to do that. And if I were to do this, I get a chance to change my mind as a dialog box comes up asking me for my confirmation. So I mentioned that there's a cool alternative way to choose a color, and this is by choosing colors from images that you have uploaded in your solution. When I add a color, I have a link here called Use User-Defined Palette Image. If I click on this, then I'm presented with a pop-up window to my central image archive. Here I could choose an existing image, or indeed upload a whole new image, and then this will appear in place of my hue and saturation picker. I have magnifying glass buttons here to zoom in and zoom out, and a repositioning button to move the whole image in my window, and then a picker button. Note here too that you could still adjust the luminosity, which could be really handy if you want to just vary the color a bit. So that's how you create and save color schemes, as well as how you add, edit, order, and delete colors. We also saw a cool way to select colors using a color picker to choose colors directly from an image. You can have many different color palettes. And though you easily can change which palette is being used in a given context, you can only use one color palette at a time in a given interface. So now we need to understand how to activate a color scheme for a given interface. There are two places where your available color palettes are defined. First, we have what is called our default color palette, which we'll find under this button here. The choice made here is what will be applicable to all of your universal design elements, such as snippets, mini calendars, which are pop-up calendars that you could define, and typographies. The default color palette will also automatically be set for any site layouts that you create, though you could change this color scheme in your site layout. In the context of page editing, module layouts, and page layouts, you'll inherit the color scheme that is defined in the active site layout. And if you want to use another color scheme in these contexts, you'll change it up in your site design. So if I have a given page here that I want to edit, we can see that it uses the color scheme defined in the site layout. To change it, I just need to find the site layout in use and change the active color scheme. I'll just right-click on the page, enter into the page's properties interface, and then click on Edit by the page's site layout, which in this case I could see is the site's default as indicated by the Select option being visible. Then in my site layout, under the Tangora button, Properties, under the Manager tab, I'll just change my color scheme to whatever I'd like. And now when I save and publish my site layout and return to my page, we'll notice that the new color scheme is available now. Now here's an important piece of information. Once a color has been set to an element, the color remains. That is to say, if you change a color in a given slot in a given color scheme, or switch color schemes, there is no retroactive effect on your colors that you've already applied. That is to say that changing a color palette will never lead to a situation where your colors change automatically. So you can toggle your color palette choice whenever you'd like without ever having to worry about messing anything up. So that's everything you need to know about color schemes. Thank you for watching.